G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute. I'm joined today by Algared and welcoming back from his long vacation, no, Dyson. Uh, how you been, buddy? It's been a while.
I can avoid.
Busy and really bad internet.
Do you want to tell us what you've been kind of doing, or if you don't want to, that's okay. It's up to you. Because I think
Uh,
I think
I
it's
mean,
very relative at the moment in the current world stage. So if you want
uh,
to,
I graduated from school and I've been, of course, now working in a hospital as a nuclear medicine technologist. So
mm. And so
we've been busy lately.
you've been dealing a bit of the pandemic on a daily basis, I assume. So you're kind of um,
Tired.
seeing a lot of that stuff and tired. Yes, of course. But yeah, thank you for help those that you help though. I think everyone would appreciate it. All right, so the video I dread to make. No, kidding. The 400i buyer's guide. So I've got Dyson here and Algrid because they're very much fans of this ship. Where I, as you know, am not the biggest fan of Origin due to the lack of gameplay. I do not hate the ships though. That's a rumor that I don't know where that's come from. I don't hate them. I just want them to have better gameplay.
He
So
hates them.
no, I don't hate them. So where do you want to start, gentlemen?
Well, let's just start from just an overall impression, I would say, which is I love it. It's probably one of the best designed ships in a long time. And honestly, if the Connie was made today, it would be closer to this ship than it is now.
Mm.
And that's you can it's this ship really just shows the age of a lot of the older ships.
It really does. I think there's a lot of positives there. So, being one of the last of the Origin lineup, it's actually got the actually looks luxurious inside and out. It's really laid out really well. And just everything seems cohesive and a lot better. And I can go back and look at all the other ships in the Origin lineup and other lineups, not just Origin. But we're seeing that maturing of the ship pipeline finally, and I think this is one of the better. I'd have to say it's probably the best Origin ship in terms of layout and look
Mm.
and capturing that actual luxury part of it that I've complained about a lot. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um
I think you're right, Execute. I do think that the layout of a ship really does capture that luxurious feel, but also it's done away with a lot of that feel of wasted space that you get with a lot of the
Mm.
Origin ships.
yes.
Um, I fully understand that wasted space dynamic or feel on the 890 because what the 890 is supposed to be doing. But at the moment, it does feel like the 890 does have that lack of gameplay loops. And yes, you can use it
Mm.
as a carrier, and yes, you can use it as other things, but it doesn't feel it's got that. Whereas the 400i, just the layout gives it that compactness. We're not got that wasted space. There are other issues that people keep raising, but I think in some cases a lot of those issues are not as valid as
Mm.
the case that is being put forward for them.
So let's cut into those then. So the a lot of the comparisons that we're seeing. So like CIG themselves call it a constellation competitor, but they also called the 600i a constellation competitor. So we've kind of caught them on a lie, but I digress on that. But what other people have been saying is basically the freelancer because it's an explorer and the cutlass because the weapons are similar. But I think that what you're going to say, Agrid, I'll let you speak for yourself. So you go
Yeah.
right ahead.
Uh, I know a lot of people have said that it really is a better competitor to the Dura. And when you look at the cargo,
And that is the funniest freeze frame of Algared I think I've ever seen.
Oh, save it, cut
All
it,
right.
and turn it into a thumbnail.
Yeah. All right. We'll restart.
going, oh,
All
and
right.
oh, there you
He's
go.
he's back. We'll
I'm
keep going
back.
because that's actually really funny. So I'm going to leave that. But yeah, start again, Algared, because you had a really weird
Um,
look on your face.
so when you compare the 400 to the Dura and you look at the cargo capacity, the Dura takes 28 SCU of cargo, whereas and yes, at this point in time, I am using the matrix of lies, so bear with me. But the 400 has what was it, 42 units of cargo.
Yeah.
When you compare it to the Cutlass Black, which a lot of people are doing, you only go up an extra 4 units of cargo, so it goes to 46 SCU of cargo. So when you look at cargo space, you go, yeah, it is more that criteria. However, when you start looking at the components and the size of a ship, it's a Connie Corsair competitor. Um, You look at the components of a cutlass, for example. A cutlass has two size 2 shield generators. It has a single size 2 power plant. It has a single size 2 quantum drive and a single size 2 shield.
Mm.
The Freelancer, on the other hand, has two size 2 power coolers, one size 2 power plant. Oh, sorry. Yep, one size 2 power plant, one size 2 shield, and two size 2 shield. One size 2 quantum drive and two size 2 shields. You look at this ship, 400i, and you suddenly go, it's got an additional size 2 cooler. So it's got three size 2 coolers. It's got an additional power plant. So it's got three size 2 power plants. It's got one size 3. It's got the room for a size 3 quantum drive. It comes with a size 2 quantum drive when I looked at it in game. And it's got a size 3 shield. Now, you compare that to, say, a Connie, and it's got an additional power plant to a Connie. It's got the same shield as a Connie. It's got an additional cooler than a Connie.
Right.
When you compare it to the Corsair, same thing. One additional power plant, one additional cooler. So when you compare it in those terms, in terms of components, it is clearly a Connie Corsair competitor.
See,
And it leads to
even in the way the components are going now. Now, you guys tell me if you think different, but even that leans itself towards more luxury. Like, I think they're finally starting to understand what luxury is, because to me, something luxurious is almost like overcompensated. It's overpowered. Like, it's twice as what it actually needs to be.
yeah.
Do you
It's
kind of agree with that or not? That just seems to
well,
have a lot more power than it actually needs.
well, the thing is, it's finally making Origin the way Origin should have been as the luxury brand, because it's like the sports car brand. It's the brand that has performance, high performance, solid design, and aesthetics all wrapped into one, not just aesthetics over everything, which the other Origin ships really lean into. And that's the
I,
thing that they've gotten right, and they really need to keep this forward
mm,
with Origin, and people might actually start seeing Origin as a serious brand for the someone that's working in a profession, not just, oh, I have extra money, let's get this.
Mm.
mm. And I think that is like what you were saying about having the ship that has that aesthetic of being luxury. I think that was kind of what the original Phoenix had. And the original Phoenix was supposed to have an additional power plant to run all its additional systems, but it doesn't. It's got the same power plant and the same setup that you find on an Andromeda or an Aquila. So the 400, with its additional power plant and yet less systems than a Phoenix, is actually a better ship than the Phoenix in that regard. Now, I know people will say the weapons are less, but when you start comparing it to say the Connie, people say, oh, it's not a Connie Andromeda because it's got so much less weapons. But I think you've got to take into consideration that it is a luxury explorer, and when you're comparing it to the Connie, you've got to then compare it to the Aquila and the Phoenix, not the Andromeda. And when you
Mm.
do that, both the Aquila and the Phoenix both are lacking one of the turrets. Sorry, the Aquila's missing one of the turrets, and the Phoenix is missing most of its missile loadout. So that
Mm.
the Phoenix goes down to 28 size 1 missiles. Uh,
Yeah.
the Aquila goes to, I think, 24 um,
Mm.
size 2 missiles,
I
and
think
this
when
has
you
16 and 16.
I think when you kind of look at the whole thing across the whole board, it's somewhere in the middle between all of this stuff, but that makes it in a unique spot. So basically, it's kind of like it looks lower down than it should be, but all the components bring it up back up to where the constellation and the other ships are. And
Mm,
for me, that is a part of the luxury or the overpoweredness of it, but also it's basically like a really and people are going to shit when I say this, but it is an upgunned version of the Cutlass and Freelance, and that's why it looks like it's a bit of everything, and that does make it unique because it is a little bit of everything. Um, and so it's better than a Freelancer, it's better than a Cutlass, and it's got all the components of a Connie, but it doesn't do as much as a Connie, and that kind of gives it that unique appeal, I think, to the people that really
Well,
want that. Go ahead.
you've
thing that
also
you
got
have
the other thing to consider. Go on, Dyson.
Well, the
Dasein?
thing you have to think about is that power plant and everything is probably going to be working on going to the engines and being able to run out everything at once because this is going to be faster and it can go farther than the Aquila. And
Yep.
that's the big thing they said in the Q&A, and that right there is a major advantage. Plus two, when you look at how the weapons are set up on this actually has one of the best weapon setups I've seen on a ship because it's designed for how the weapons are going to be used, is what I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay,
because
I
they're
get you.
remote turrets that you don't have to have people rush into. You can two, they're set up, you're running away. They actually have great rear coverage on this thing. So if you're trying to get away and you're faster than the average ship of that size,
Mm,
that's a real advantage
Yeah.
to actually do what you
yeah.
need to do.
That all comes back to that role thing where I think they're starting to finally actually understand the role. And I will give props. This is the best Origin ship I've seen in planning and layout and stuff like that. So
Mm.
yeah.
And and when you hear people complain about the weapons on the 400i, and they say that the turrets cannot converge to the same turret that the pilot's shooting at. But that's by design. And when you look at the
Hmm.
when you look at the rear turret firing turrets, both turrets can actually converge. They can both fire at the same target, and that makes this a really good ship. If you're an explorer and you're trying to avoid pirates or you're trying to get away, you're not going to be, you don't want to have to face your ship to fire your main armament. You want actually, if you're trying to get away, you want to be making them chase you and knock their front shield out,
Mm.
and make them run away. So I don't see that as a valid argument in terms of the way people put this.
Mm.
Precisely. The fact that they can shoot the same target is a major boon
Yeah.
Mm.
for the
And
Just
ship.
can I just go back to what Dyson was saying about the Aquila and how this can go further than the Aquila? So my natural next question would be though, and I don't think we have the information on this to make this call yet, but does the Aquila have better scanners? Because do you know what I mean? Because you want that triangle effect, the rock paper scissors. So I'd assume that the scanners are probably better on the Aquila, but it doesn't go as far. Do you know
Well,
what I mean?
I
I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just assuming from a design perspective.
we do know that the Aquila A has the two jump point mapping sensors, and we also know the Aquila has, instead of its dorsal turret, it has, instead of a dorsal turret with weapons, it's got a dorsal turret with two size 2 scanners.
Yep.
And that's all we can say. Plus its normal onboard ship sensors.
Mm.
We don't know what additional or what extra stuff the 400i has. Same as we don't know what the 600i has. Same as we
Yes.
don't know what the Duo has in that regard as extras.
Mm.
We can say that for the Aquila, we can say that for the Terrapin. We do know the Terrapin's got those extra two hardpoints for scanners. We know that the MSR has that hardpoint for sensors, but we don't really know what the others have.
All right. So
well, the other
before,
big thing
go ahead.
oh, is
Go ahead.
actually that it also is able to carry a snub fighter to actually help with the exploration. That's actually quite big when you think about it. Like, you've landed on a planet, you're wanting to look around, you have that extra ship that can help with that. Either provide extra eyes in the sky, look around, locate a point ahead of time. That's a actually quite a big deal if you're looking around and exploring
Mm.
versus just, oh, I bring a bike along.
Mm. All right. So now
Yeah.
we've talked about a lot of positives. I want to hear some negatives from you guys. So give me some negatives.
Well, before we go into the negatives, the other point with those remote cannons is, often we find with remote guns, if you're sitting in one of the remote turrets, the other remote turret will actually target the same area. And so, if that's true of this ship, then ideally you've got a 1 to 2 cruise ship, as opposed to the others, which need more than one crew to function effectively, or a
Mm.
minimum of 2 crew to function effectively.
Leave someone to play engineer as well.
Mm.
All right. So can I get some negatives, please, before I start on my negatives? So, Agrid, do you want to go ahead?
Yep. Look, I think one of the biggest negatives for me is that um, is the price point. It is
Yep.
Origin. You've got that Origin tax, the luxury tax added on. So the ship is probably priced a little high, and yet when I compare it to the Aquila and the Phoenix, which I think you've really, when you're looking at it in terms of that explorer in that range, significantly cheaper. The Aquila
Mm.
is 310. The Phoenix is 350.
But where
When
would
you compare it to a Corsair,
you
it's
price it at?
195. I'd I'd probably price it closer to down towards midway between probably a Corsair and a Andromeda. So somewhere in that range. So maybe I don't know, 230, 220.
It's
It
already
is. It
220
is
US.
220.
Oh, well, I'd take it down even further, and I'd take it down. I was thinking of the Australian tax must have been added on.
It's
So,
all good. Yep.
but yeah, I'd be looking at closer to the Corsair Andromeda.
So Dyson, real quick, where do you think it sits price wise, and some of your negatives?
Price wise, I would actually say I would put it somewhere between the Corsair and the Taurus, actually, because it's kind of not as large as a cruise ship as its actual competitors, what it's competing against, but it's also not quite in the Cutlass or anything area either. It's its own little ship size, in my opinion.
Mm.
But
So
big
yeah.
negative is hands down going to be its actually life support system crew capacity. Because while it's great to be able to have a explorer ship of this size that you can have less crew for,
Mm.
the extra crew is vital when exploring. Because let's say you bring a vehicle along, you're going to want people to man that. You're going to want to have someone manning the sensor. You want those extra people when you're looking around, and that's a big negative right there.
Yep.
Uh,
Hmm.
yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So my negatives generally, you know how I look at all these ships. I generally come at them from gameplay perspective, right? So the first big one being Origin is that this loses VIP compatibility. You know what I'm trying to say? VIP, it can't take VIPs like the 600i or the 890 jump. So that's like it's just that's where the leap is. So this is the line between the 600 and the 400. You've lost the ability to do those VIP missions. So that's a big one for me because that is their exclusive gameplay for Origin. And so that I think is the big negative for me. Secondly, I come back to kind of what Dyson was saying about the snub and stuff, and that's the fact that it can't take a full size rover. So that's a big thing when it comes to exploring planets. You can land this, and yes, you can drop a cyclone or a rock, but that's not really tailored to exploration. You maybe can get the RN out there, and that will help with it. But I think the rover is more purely, and especially if you get things like the links that's coming down the track, they would be a lot more tailored to the ground exploration that this does not have. Um, they did release a patch so the rock can fit in it. That's really good. Also really don't like what they've done with the vehicle bay, as in the bike, the X1. I really think it should have been able to take all the bikes or other bikes. They could have also made it
Yes.
so that it could take cargo in that area, so you could at least be a bit more versatile with it. I don't like the fact that it's just a platform. That's like, again, it doesn't speak to the luxury part of this ship at all. There's no versatility there, and that's just
Missed
a tiny
opportunity
little
for
thing. Sorry.
missed opportunity for smuggling as well when you said cargo.
There we go. No, that's totally a thing as well. Yeah.
I think, in some sense, while that would be nice, I think part of the reason, certainly at the moment, that's not the case, is because of the situation we've got with the 890. The 890's cargo hold still doesn't work.
Yep.
It doesn't work because you've got the hangar bay and you've got the cargo bay, and there's some weird thing where they made the hangar bay able to take cargo, but that supersedes the cargo bay of the 890. And so if you do that little vehicle pad being able to take cargo, it's going to have that same impact. Does it take vehicle and cargo or what do you do with that cargo bay that
That can all be
suddenly comes
fixed
out?
though in the interest of
So
time though,
I
Algared.
think that
So what I'm trying to
I
say
think
is,
down the track it would be great to see that, but whether they do that is another thing. And
yeah,
I think you're right. It'd be nice to see it bad, but at the moment,
I'm only nitpicking. I know I'm nitpicking, but to be honest with you, as I said, as Origin ships go, this is like cream of the crop. This is what the others need to be brought up to when they do their gold standard pass. Quite frankly, this ship is clearly matured, and it is clearly showing the advantage of time and effort and the maturing of the ship pipeline. Um, I also think the look of it is more distinct and unique than some of the other ships in the Origin lineup. I think it's like it's dared to be different, and I think that that is another sign of luxury. You know, some of the luxury stuff that you see in real life, I'm like, I wouldn't buy that. That's bloody ugly. You know, but this is a nice looking ship, but I'm just saying it. You know what I mean when I say it's different? Like it's got that hook nose on it type thing, and it works, right? And I would have liked to have seen that with say something like the 600, like the 890 jump looks unique, but the 600 is kind of got a lot of in common with the 300 series and stuff like that. So I don't know. I digress a little bit there, but I look back at some of the other ships and I wish that they were more to the same level of this. In short.
Yep.
And I think when you're looking at this ship and picking up a point you made about it not having that role that niche role that Origin do, that
Hmm.
VIP transport. I got the impression when they were talking about it on the video that the designers, had intent Paul Jones and co had intended to have a part, whether they were being joking or make it a party boat with a pool and all the rest of
Yep.
it. But Paul Jones said no. Chris Roberts said this is an explorer ship. This is a explorer ship to compete with, basically in Connie line. And the second you say explorer and Connie, you're really saying Aquila and Cork. So
Mm,
when we're doing comparisons and thinking of this ship, I think we've got to break away from that mold of saying this is an Andromeda. You've got to look at it
mm,
in terms of Aquila, Phoenix, Corsair, because that was the line that Chris Roberts was saying this is what this ship has to be. And
mm,
again, as I've looked at it, even though I think the weapons are lower than the others, even though the missiles are lower, even though cargo is significantly lower than the Corsair and the Aquila Phoenix,
mm.
it still to me fits in that role. The biggest thing I don't like is the fact that the cargo is so small compared to the other two that it's competing with.
Okay, so the big positive for me from this ship, right? And I can't believe neither of you mentioned this, but maybe it's just me and because I'm more gameplay focused, I digress. But I want to hear you guys tell me about the cartography room. I think that's the real big thing about this ship. For a ship of its size, we don't have a ship this size that has that cartography room. It is a real unique feature. And even if like when people were comparing it to Der, I was like, well, even if it is the Der, it's got a cartography room, and the Der doesn't have one of those. So like,
And
I almost wonder, does this lean like could this possibly do a bit of command and control because of that cartography room? Like, are you able to be able to command other ships? Maybe I don't know. Like maybe we can in the future, but I'm just saying like that's a big thing for a ship of this size. Like,
mm,
there is no other ship that has that.
Too many questions though on whether it's going to be really functional or if it's going to mainly be an aesthetic thing, and that's the reason I really was not putting that there because
Hmm.
is it could easily just be an aesthetic or even just letting you an extra HUD for people to hang out and look at, not
Mm.
actual functionality, and that's my concern with that.
Well, look, at least you can make a
oh,
grilled cheese sandwich and
a
sit
grilled
there
cheese
and look
sandwich
at the yeah
at
and
the
look at
kitchen next
the.
door. That's right. Look, I actually think it's key to the role of it being an explorer ship.
Yeah.
It really is that site. And when you compare it to the Connie and the Aquila or the Corsair, they're not listed with that. Of
Yes.
course, the Connie was originally supposed to have a module you could lock in, but possibly could do that, but it's not. This has it, and the only other explorer ship that does have that is the Carrack,
Mm.
and
The
that.
600i has one of those, I thought.
Ah, true, true. My
Mm.
apologies, I was wrong. There are two of the explorer ships that have that, the Carrack
Mm.
and the 600i. This is certainly the smaller ship that seems to have that, and it's certainly the only one in its class in its class of Aquila Corsair. It doesn't have the jump point scanners, but it certainly has a cartography suite.
Yep.
Um, so I think it's got advantages and disadvantages over the others, but to me, it really is in that Aquila Corsair category. It's not a cutlass. It's not a freelancer. It has advantages over those, but far surpass
Mm.
that point. And when you look at the price point, yeah, it certainly is in that price point of being an Aquila Corsair competitor. Corsair
Especially
195.
Especially
uh,
if you base it
Quill of
based
310.
on, sorry, especially if you base it like John Crew does on components, it definitely is priced on a component level.
Mm.
All right, then. Is there anything you guys want to add, or we can kind of wrap it up here? I guess final recommendation. Do you recommend the ship? Do you not recommend the ship? And who would you recommend it for? I'll start with you, Dyson.
Uh, I highly recommend this ship, actually. I think this is a great ship for someone that wants a basic multi-crew ship that wants to do some exploring. Yes, the cargo isn't that great, but it definitely has advantages that over a lot of the other ships. Uh, and it's priced just right, in my opinion, to be able to be viable for that.
Mm. I got a follow up question for you. Where do you think this sits in the list of, say, daily driver ships? Like, you know, those ships around that area, that multi crew daily driver. Do you think it
Mhm.
is like in the middle, top, bottom? Like, where do you think it sits?
Near the top, but I still think the Mercury Star Runner is a better daily driver
Mm.
because of the cargo space and being able to do the multiple other things. I think that puts that a little bit ahead, but I think it's
Hmm.
just behind there on my
Okay.
list.
Algared, same questions for you, mate.
Um, when I think of ships for daily drivers, a lot of people say, "Oh, I want a Corsair as a daily driver. I want a Andromeda as a daily driver, or Connie as a daily driver, or I want a as a daily driver." This is certainly up in that mix. When you look at the requirements of those ships, yes, I can pilot a Connie by itself. Yes, I can
Hmm.
pilot uh, I assume a Corsair by itself. Yes, I can do a Cutlass or a Freelancer by itself. If you go to the Matrix of Lies, this is the only one of those ships that is listed as being able to be crewed by a single person. Every other one
Mm.
is, Connie's a 4, Corsair is 4, Freelancers are 2 to 4, Cutlass is 2. Yes, you can fly those ships solo, but this is the only one that is clearly being designed to be able to be run as a solo ship.
Mm.
Does it work as a daily driver? Yeah. Are there better ships as daily drivers? Possible, depending on what you want to do. But this is certainly seems to be an all-rounder ship, which is better if you've got an additional crew member, but you're certainly not
Mm.
based on what they seem to be saying, you're not losing anything with that. And I think that's another plus. I think the price point does put it into that game. I normally say, ships under 250 are buying game. Yes, as per
Mm.
usual, I do have this ship in my fleet.
Hmm.
But for people who are budget, are worried about budget and what's the best value for my budget, um, this is probably one of those buying game ships. But it does fit into that.
Mm.
If you want a ship that can do various things, this fits the bill.
Mm. All right. So from my perspective, it's probably one of the best solo explorers in the game.
Mm,
I think from its price point though, it still probably does for me fall into that category of earning game. If you are a fan of Origin and you are a fan of exploration, yeah, then this is definitely for you. As daily drivers go, I think it is still a little limited in its just exploring. Where when you look at say something like the Mercury Star Runner or the Caterpillar, you get a lot more versatility. Even the Retaliator, you get you get multiple roles, and I think for me it sits somewhere akin to the Corsair because that's also in that Explorer vein, and I think they could both kind of fight and stuff. Like the Drake being more guns but weaker, this kind of like stronger but less guns. So they're kind of like a tit for tat. Like Origin and Drake are kind of on
mm,
opposite ends of the spectrums, but the fact that they're both explorers, that kind of tells me that they are ironically in that they're pulled out on the triangle, so to speak, on the same place. So for me, they are both weaker on the end. They're not higher up like you guys have both suggested. Like to me, they're both lower because they just do that one thing, right? And
mm,
so I like a bit of versatility in my daily driver or daily drivers. I like them to be able to do multiple things. They're a bit of a Swiss Army
mm,
knife. I think this is more niche and tailored. But if you are definitely like, look, let's be honest, we know a lot of people want to do exploration. So this is going to be a big choice for a lot of people. And there's a reason why I've seen a lot of people pick up this ship because it speaks to them. It is an explorer, and they like that luxury. Like, and I can see why it's popular with a lot of people. And I'm going to be honest, like this is Origin done right. They haven't been doing it right up until this point. Again, lack of gameplay for me. not a ship for me personally, and I just want I want Origin to have a little bit more gameplay to validate that
Mm.
price point. Making something look luxury, I don't think that's warranted. But giving it the components that they've given it, that now speaks to luxury for me. So I can actually finally start to go, yeah, this is leaning toward. I can see the Origin tax finally. It is making a lot more sense to me. Whereas some of the other ships, they just didn't quite have that for me. And I think they're finally getting to the point where I'm gonna ease my foot off the brake, so to speak, and give them less crap, right? Because this is the getting to the point where this is where it needs to be. So if they can go back and do this to the other Origin ships and bring them up to this point of view, I think I'm not gonna, as people say, hate on Origin as much, because this to me is the best Origin I've seen, right? And I want more of
Yeah.
this. This is
And
the what I was
Mhm.
looking for.
mm. And I think just to, I know I've harped on this a lot in terms of the comparison between the Corsair and the Andromeda. One of the things we know, the Corsair is supposed to fly worse than a Connie. This
Yep.
flies better than a Connie. And so again, it's fitting into that better at some areas, worse than others.
Yep.
The guns on the Corsair are better than the guns on this. The
Yep.
missiles on the Corsair, it can take eight size threes. This can take, this is bespoke 16 size 2, 16 size
Mm,
1, kind of in there with the Aquila and the
yep.
Phoenix. It really, you really do with those three ships. When you start looking at
Mm.
those three ships together, you really do start to see they are boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
all the time. One's better.
it's all that rock paper scissors of
Mm.
gameplay design, and that's you've just hit on that perfectly, Algared. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So, um, I always worry about the price, but I think as even I'm starting to see as time goes on, Origin is actually increasing in value for me. At its current price point, though, I still like you got to remember its concept, right? And the Corsair was 185. I put this on par with the Corsair, so I do think it's probably
Mm.
where I would have priced it at the same point. But also, you've got to add the Origin tax, and that's why it's gone to 220. So it's not that badly taxed compared. It's about 35 bucks over, in my opinion. But I digress. Like maybe like as things are going forward, we're starting to see a bit more come out of Origin. I just gameplay wise, like the ship being locked into one thing, like, but then again, they've done it with Corsair, so yeah, we'll
Mm.
see what happens. But look, only time's gonna tell. Like when the game comes out at the, are you really happy with your Origin purchase, or oh geez, I wish I'd gone into something a bit more versatile, and we are all playing that kind of guessing game at this point. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, this just tells me that the question is also not going to be, are you happy with those original ships that you got? Because as you can, this ship shows, as time goes on, they're getting better at designing the ships
Yep.
and making them purpose built, and that's just
Mm,
hands down
Yeah.
demonstrated here.
yep.
For me, the big thing with the price is really those components. The
Yep.
fact that it's got significantly better components than all the other ships people keep comparing it to. It's got
Mm,
more coolers, it's got more power plants, it's got against the freelancer and the
mm,
Cutlass, it's got a better quantum drive and it's got better shields. And to me, that just says the price. You can actually understand why it's priced higher than a Corsair. You can understand why so yeah.
I think we'd all agree at the end of the day, you need to do your research before you go buy a ship.
Mm.
We'll leave it at that. And there is definitely, like a transformer, more than meets the eye to this ship. On first look, there's a few things that just seem off, but when you look in the stats and stuff, like we have, um, it changes your perspective, and you really do almost need to lay it out in front of you and absorb not just this ship but the ships around it to fully appreciate now. And before, like if you
Mm.
went way back to the beginning and it's just like a freelancer and a constellation and a caterpillar, it was very hard to pull those all in. But now you've got the ability of time. You really do want to look at the ships around it to appreciate that ship specifically. Mm.
Mm.
All right, then. With that, he's been Dyson. He's been Algared. Algared, I'm going to let you sign out. So you want to do your usual spiel, please?
Yep. So if you like what we do and you like what we say, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us. Don't forget, leave your comments in the chat. We do actually read every single comment. We may not respond to them, but we do actually read them. Don't forget,
Mm.
be respectful and all the rest of it. You can also join us on Discord where you can join the discussion and everything else. And if you want to go that extra yard, join us on Patreon and help us out.
I'm
On
going to
that
give,
note,
just for the comments, I would like to hear names of what you would call your 400i. Mine, I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to think of yours. Mine is the ugly duckling. That is what I would call a 400i if I owned one. So, Dasein or Algared, what would you call yours? And if you can't think of one, too bad.
I had a name for it the other day, and I've just gone blank on it.
Sorry.
But I'll have to come back
Dasein,
to you. You know, I'm old.
do you have one,
Hmm.
Dasein?
I would call it the Rincewind. Uh, because if any of you that like Terry Pratchett, it's named after a character that is always running away from people.
That's what I was going to call it. Braves or Robin.
Okay. Is there a little bit of lore there?
What, Braves or Robin?
I don't know who it is, so please tell me.
Monty Python.
Okay, cool. Right.
Braves or Robin. He ran away.
Right. All right. Well, there we go. All right. So let us know your thoughts. And I'm going to get so schooled about Monty Python in the comments now. I can totally see it. All right. Okay. He's been Dasein. He's been Algared. I've been Execute. And we'll catch you in the next one.
We're out of here.
Help,
Take
help,
care.
I'm being oppressed.